All right, so we're gonna go on tape. Christie, are you set? We do have a pass around sheet, if you would just sign in that you were here. That's all we do, is if you wanted to sign in, let us know you're here. And if you wanna be contacted for any future meetings, put your email or something down there and we'll, get that out to you. And, if you're with the departments, well, you're gonna get a notice anyway. You don't have to put your stuff. And, when we get to a certain portion in the agenda, we will, have Mr. Trainee join us because he wants to join in the conversation. He's, Mr. Hall is, one of our members, Mr. Hall is out of state and unable to be on the phone. So we will, endeavor to carry the water and the message for everyone. So Mr. Honeman, Paul Honeman, the Chair of the Public Safety Committee of the Assembly, is with me on the committee as well, one of my colleagues.
Elsie Gray Jackson.
And on the phone shortly we'll have Mr. Dick Trainee, and again, Ernie Hall is unavailable. We have representatives, well, in fact, we're such a small group, and again, we're recording. Why don't we just go around the table so we know who all's here today?
I'm Cindy Franklin from the Municipal Prosecutor's Office.
Rob Fetch, Office of Emergency Management.
Todd Sherwood from the Municipal Attorney's Office, Civil Division.
Al Mills, Fall University Air Community Council.
Chris Bashu, Anchorage Fire.
Myron Fannin, APD.
And Christie is my assistant aide, and Cher is a similar person, Ray Jackson's aide. Legislative assistants. Thank you. So we have the monthly reports that we're sorry we didn't make the November. Things were kind of crumpled in there with the National League of Cities, which members Gray Jackson and Trainee were our board members, and they were in Seattle, I think. At that first weekend, we could have had the meeting, and then the second week was National League of Cities. I'm sorry, Alaska Municipal League had its conference in town, and so we opted to cancel the November meeting. Of course, we had Thanksgiving wrapped in. We had dealt with budget issues. The budget was approved and adopted, as you all know, not without a little bit of excitement about particularly SROs. And Mr. Trainee's just texting, call whenever we need him. So I promised him, since he's watching his grandkids, I promised him I'm not to kid him in too many minutes here. But in any event, we got through the budget, so here we are, December's meeting. Fire Department, Chief Bashu, thanks for joining us. Anything that you can share with us report-wise?
This is actually one of our busy times of the year, both with the car crashes from the city streets, and also anytime we get a cold snap, we tend to have an increase in fires. So crews have been very busy, but so far we've been doing pretty well in keeping up.
Okay. Anything on the horizon for staffing? Are you looking pretty good for staffing? Or?
I don't know, the Matrix report came out, and I don't know if you'd had a chance to read that. It does make some recommendations for positions within the department that need to be filled, and basically it takes you a while to read through it, but you definitely see that they're recommending another ambulance for Midtown Anchorage, and I would love to see those come my way. I don't know when that's going to happen.
Okay. And Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the Matrix study has quite a few recommendations, staffing recommendations. And so I guess my question is, do you see the administration following through with those staffing recommendations?
I've not talked really, just as you asked me, I've not really talked to my boss, George Vacalis, about it to find out specifically what he has in mind. Our budget came and was approved.
Right.
Would have to take some change there in the budget, because otherwise the money is not in my budget to do any.
Budget amendments are easy, yeah.
Are they?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Okay.
can do it anytime.
All right.
And I was just curious.
And I didn't, I'm not giving you a double speak
No,
line
I
there at
know
all.
you're not.
We honestly just hadn't sit down and said, George, what's our plan for how to address this problem?
No.
Just hadn't happened.
I know that, you're being quite honest, like you always are. But I was just curious because there were several positions, and like you said, ambulance too.
Yes.
That was talked about. And studies are really nice, but then if you're not gonna figure out how to follow through on it, what the hell sense does it make?
I agree 100%.
So that's my concern.
Seems like we had a staffing study at one time.
Yeah,
Hasn't been another public safety committee.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Chief, we're gonna have a presentation on SPICE in the community, some things going on, so if you could just stick around just a few minutes,
Okay.
maybe we'll have you give some information from the medical side, the medic runs and fire department calls.
I can't provide you with stats, but
Yep, sure. It may be anecdotal, I
I know it's a
understand.
problem, yeah.
Okay, Health and Human Services, haven't seen a rep presented to yet, so we'll see if they happen to make it. Office of Emergency Management, Mr. Fitch.
Yeah, we have a couple of things coming up. Of course, we have the large Alaska Shield exercise, which is in March, which the the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, will be operating that. Fire Department will be participating in that. Some other thing, we had an exercise in November, so we brought everybody in. We started working towards getting prepared for the March exercise. Things that are coming up on the horizon. Starting in January, we'll be doing all the facilities that are owned by the municipality of Anchorage will be getting a security assessment, vulnerable assessment done on them. The state is the one that does the assessment, and they'll be working through our office, and we'll be going to each facility. We started with the fire department starting in January, and I gotta thank the chief. Did really was Jody.
Jody Hedrick.
She's been really great about giving us calendars, setting that all up with the fire captain, so we're really moving that forward. So that'll be starting in January, and that'll go through 2014.
What does that mean in vulnerability assessment? Can you kind of
Well,
just
it
brief
works
us?
actually a couple of things. First of all, they're gonna look at the security and vulnerability of every facility. And what they'll do is they'll come up with a report letting us know what discrepancies are at facilities, you know, what needs to be fixed, what doesn't need to be fixed. And what it helps us in the long run is that if we apply for a grant and we say, okay, the fire department station 3 is susceptible to certain threats, we need them fixed, therefore we can use that report to get grant money funds for it, so it helps us out in that aspect. But it's a large scale, it's a huge questionnaire that they have to go through, plus they come out to the facility, walk around the facility, check it out, and they give us a report at the end.
And this is done by the state?
It's done by the Department of, the state of, what is it?
Emergency Management?
Emergency Management, yeah, Homeland Security, excuse me, yeah.
Very good. Anything else?
No, that's all we got going for right now.
Thank you,
Great,
Mr.
yes.
Chairman. I think that's really, really great. Are there gonna be security assessments of the auditorium out here?
Yes, everything that's owned, the buildings that are owned by the city, so like City Hall would not be because it's leased, right? So anything that's owned.
And that's really hard because all those employees in City Hall.
Yeah, you know, it's just one of the.
It's part of the rules.
It's part of the rule, what you can own, you can do an assessment on.
Right.
So we have, 100 buildings or so, we have a lot of buildings. to
Right,
go through.
right.
Public Works is also joined in this effort. They're giving us 2 inspectors, along with the state's inspectors, and myself will be going to each facility
Mhm.
throughout the year.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anything else, Mr. Fisher?
Nope.
Appreciate your presence and your report there. You're certainly welcome to stay for if you need other things going. I know you're a small staff and you got a role. I'm gonna call Mr. Trainer real quick.
Spice, I know this is Spice Girls, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme.
I hate to tell you that kind of ages you, man.
Trust me, I know I'm aged.
better than saying
But I do know who they are, so me too.
Thank you.
Let's see if I can reach Mr. Trainee. I don't know what's going on here. Bear with me just a minute.
Then we have to my time. Spice Girls.
Moved it up, I think. It was hung up for a minute and then.
I missed the call.
Alrighty. Well, I'll let him know.
Are
I'm
you
trying to
dialing
reach
his
him.
cell phone?
He wanted me to call his home,
Oh,
but
he
I'll try
did?
it.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Okay, try calling. Call me. Okay, so we're gonna, move forward then. Health and Human Services, were you able to get in touch with,
Yeah,
Jackie?
she wasn't able to come.
Okay,
They
so we'll move.
didn't schedule their department
Christmas event, okay.
Yeah.
I knew this time of the year, we're always trying to be accommodating of people's schedules.
She was gonna try to show up by 12:45 though.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
All right, so under the police, I guess Captain Fanning's representing the chief.
Yes.
And is there anything that, I guess in general, you'd like to report, staffing? And I guess real briefly, Chief Bashu, is the fire department afflicted by any contract changes, retirements by the end of the year? Are you guys challenged by any of the issues of?
No, the PD has the big problem
Yeah.
on their horizon there. We're not anticipating the same thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, staffing is an issue. We are losing bodies. A lot of it is because of the end of the contract. They're taking all the police and fire guys, or not all of them, but a lot of them are choosing to retire because they're taking advantage of the 3%, I think it's 3% that they would get toward their retirement, so, and they're already, just all of them are over 20 years now, all the police and fire guys. So we are starting to lose a lot of bodies at this point, and, you know, we're doing different things to address that, but it's becoming an issue.
Anything in the horizon as far as academy? You got an academy going on?
We got an academy right now with 16. We wanted, you know, more. We ended up with 16. I think we've already, 2 of those that we had selected, we were at 18. 2 of them had other commitments and they couldn't go to this academy, but we think we can pick them up, and if we get to have a summer academy or spring academy, they'll be front loaded into that. We've got our full-time recruitment effort going on right now. We stood up
Mr. Trainee?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, we're live. For the record, Mr. Trainee's joining us on the phone. Captain Myron Fanning from APD has given an APD report.
We stood up a full-time recruiting unit, so they're in the process of continually trying to look for qualified candidates and put them through the process. And I was down there yesterday and looked, and they've got probably 18 or 20 that's in the queue right now that we're starting to put through the process. That looks like it could be, you know, viable candidates. So, you know,
What's the anticipated number that you're looking for?
we would like to get, you know, around 28 in the summer. That would be our goal. 16 is, you know, that may be enough to replace. We really don't know. I mean, maybe, you know, a lot of these people who are going right now to take advantage of the contract, maybe they would have waited another year and left in 14. So we're hoping that this is, you know, the vast majority of the people we're going to lose is happening right now. It's occurring right now, and we won't lose as many next year. We really don't know that, though, until we see. So these 16 may be enough to take care of the anticipated losses in 14, but that just keeps us, you know, where we're at right now.
And of the 16 in the academy, have you had any challenges? Are they all still there? They're still running? Or
They're all still there. I was down there, talked to them yesterday. They're all, you know, doing very well in the academy. I mean, I think we hired some good people there, doing very well. I think out of the 16, all of them, but 2, you know, excelled on the initial diagnostic qualifications. They've all passed the initial defensive tactics stuff. So, you know, looks like a smart bunch. So I think we did well on our backgrounds there and who we selected.
Okay. Very good. Ms. Gray Jackson?
No, thank you.
Mr. Trainee, do you have any questions of Captain Fanning, reference staffing or anything police department issue?
No, not this time.
Okay. Related to the department, I had talked to the chief. Well, there's been an ongoing discussion for the past couple of months, and we had actually about 2 or 3 meetings back on the Public Safety Committee, an issue with the community service officers and
Yes.
Their inability as a result of trying to hire new people as those folks that are retired.
Right.
We found a challenge that perhaps the charter language has precluded the CSOs from being able to write citations when it butts up against the Alaska Police Standards Council.
That's correct.
To the state legislation.
That's the way I understand it. I mean, basically, the way I understand the ordinance is you have to be a sworn police officer in order to write citations and impound cars. APSC does not feel that a CSO is a sworn officer, and they won't certify them as a sworn police officer. So that's the problem that we've had. So at this point, I'm authorized 4 CSOs. I've only got 3 currently. I haven't filled the last position until we address this issue. I've ordered 2 of them not to write cites or impound vehicles because I don't believe they fall, you know, meet the statutory requirements to do it because they're not sworn police officers. Officer McCulley, or CSO McCulley, just recently retired as a police officer, so he is certified. He can do it. So I've got 1 actual CSO out there that are truly impounding vehicles and writing citations. I have other things that the other 2 CSOs are doing now, but I need them to be able to do what, you know, we hired them to do as far
Scope
as
of duty.
right. Right now, I've got them doing other things. They're helping out throughout the department. They're picking up bicycles. They are transporting certain things and, you know, evidence and stuff like that. Once an officer has discovered the evidence, you know, they can't be the initial officer for discovery, but when an officer discovers it and starts making a case, they can transport evidence and bicycles and stuff like that.
So the challenge that we have before us, and this is why I wanted it on the agenda so we can make sure that we meet the deadline, because 'cause I think we're up against the deadline, we asked the clerk at the last meeting.
It was January.
Somewhere in January, and I think municipal legal may be here, Mr. Sherwood. Can you respond? We may have to do a charter change, or will an ordinance suffice? Can we change the ordinance since the charter was changed back in what year?
Yeah, I can respond, Mr. Chairman. I don't know off the top of my head when, was it 2010, I think, when they changed it downtown, because originally in '97 with the charter change and the parking ferries and all of that, and I think some of it was in reaction to, what was it, speed cameras.
Yeah, photo
Anyway,
radar.
at that point, only police officers could do anything, anywhere. And then in, I think it was 2010, the charter changed, allowed, it says either an agency or an authority, and what happened was the parking authority, but only in a certain geographic area downtown, they could do parking enforcement. And I have looked at this quite a bit and actually have a rough draft for a charter amendment, because our view of it is we can't fix this through an ordinance change. So what we need is, because as Captain Fanning described the problem, is exactly spot on. The Alaska Police Standards Council says your CSOs don't qualify. One thing is an aside, we sometimes use the term peace officer, and it's used in our own code. But again, that can be like land use enforcement officers might be a peace officer, but they're not a police officer, and that's the term that is used in the ordinance in terms of enforcement, except for that downtown core. So our opinion is it does take a change of the charter, and what we're working on is something that would be modeled on the 2010 ordinance change, except it would be to give employees of the police department, that's the phrase we're using now. Could be police officers, could be non-police officers, but then they could write tickets in that downtown core, which might assist the parking authority, and outside the downtown core.
Because that's what we need, is a citywide coverage.
That's correct.
And we're expecting to have something to offer in January.
Before the deadline to get it on the ballot? Because we're running up against the deadline
Right.
to have it put on the ballot.
In time to
Correct.
have it on the April ballot.
Because it has to be introduced.
I think the 14th of January, I think, or first.
Could you
meeting
make
in
sure you
January.
contact the clerk's office, Dave?
Yeah.
I will. Yeah.
Ms. Gray Jackson, you have a
No,
question?
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So there is one other issue, and of course, in the interim, it's certainly something worth exploring. And I'm not sure if you found it under the charter, Mr. Sherwood, but the chief of police is authorized to appoint special police officers. And I'm not sure if that would meet the qualifications under the charter changed. So if you look under the charter itself, only the chief of police has the authority to appoint special police officers. It's a term. It used to cover the Anchorage Police Reserve. And they weren't necessarily certified police officers under the state, but they would fit this municipal charter by code, by definitions. If we, at least in the interim, that might be able to get the police department operational with their two other CSOs.
Is there a time limit on that they're authorized to serve in that position? or
No,
it's-
and the thing is they're not certified by the state as a police officer. The reserves, that was one of the concerns they had.
Right.
But some of those reserves, if you remember, back in the day, were functioning on their own at times. They would go and do traffic control for Rendezvous, Miners and Trappers Ball. They were actually wearing a police uniform, carrying a gun. They went to all the training, they just weren't certified. But this is something that might get you through interimly. It also may, if in fact the voters don't agree that this is a smart move, it may be one way of looking at it from the perspective of, they still meet the definitions under the charter, I think, but you might wanna look at that and see if you can get an opinion.
I will. Thank you.
Yeah, because
Well, you might
I've
want
only,
to look at the charter too, because I think the mayor has the authority to appoint police officers.
No, it's the,
Check,
chief.
Chief. Check the charter, because I think it's in there somewhere.
Okay. Look on the charter. I think it's the chief that actually gives a definition of power, only the chief. Anything else,
Just
Mr.
get a
Sherwood?
chance.
Mr. Trainee, do you have anything on that issue?
Just to get a chance, I thought the mayor had the authority too. I could be wrong, but you might want to check it.
There is, I think there's something about the mayor designating peace officers, which is a much broader category, and maybe that's what it is. Because
That could be, see if that'll work for you.
that's under
Just trying to figure out a way to do it.
145.030.
and I don't think that will work, because when it comes to parking outside the downtown Corps, parking enforcement, our charter specifically says police officers, it even uses terms like regularly sworn police officers, which isn't in state code, but when it says police officer, that means someone who meets the Alaska Police Standards Council criteria. I get it. The thing we say is all police officers are peace officers, but not all peace officers are police officers.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yep, I had to look, there's a section under the charter with the chief.
Okay.
The duties of the chief of police, and I think that's one you might wanna check.
Okay.
That's something that would help.
And I'm
is-
hoping that it's fresh and it's not stale or it's
Right.
dissolved or whatever.
Because I think I only get to keep McCully, who's actually certified right now, but for a year, under the state statute or the administrative code, because the way APSC interprets it is they have to do the function of a police officer for a certain amount of time during a calendar year, or they don't maintain their certification, so.
Well, no, that's a department decision, isn't it?
Well, yeah, we could probably, he's truly a sworn officer, so we could probably use him in some capacity.
Make a few arrests of
Yeah,
them,
to
give him some,
maintain- to
make him
maintain
go
the
with the warrant officer or
certification.
something to.
Right, yeah, so that is, I mean,
Sort of
since he is a previously sworn police officer.
We're trying to make it
retired
work,
police officer.
unfortunately, sometimes you have to work around code, but if we need to change the code or the charter needs to be changed, obviously, it sounds like the recommendation is we need to do that. So just gotta make sure we're timely, when it gets out. All right, so the next and probably last topic, unless we have new topics here, and I know Ms. Ray Jackson has a 1 o'clock, so, the street drug spice concerns. Now so maybe we can help you limit it a little bit. The municipal assembly was first in the state to actually, ban, if you will, the product spice, through a lot of work with Jen Messick, who was an assistant municipal attorney. But since then, apparently, as my understanding, things have changed on the ingredients, or whatever you wanna call it. Can you just give us an update? What are our
Yes.
challenges and where are we headed?
Right, so at the end of 2010, we passed the first law in the state trying to make this street drug that was called spice a controlled substance and regulate it criminally, make it a crime to possess, sell, distribute spice. We defined it by its chemical makeup, and we used what was then the most current definition. The Alaska legislature then was looking at it and addressed it in the next session, went ahead and added it to the Controlled Substances Act. By the time they did that, the chemical makeup of the drug had already changed. So what we had said was against the law. When you're seizing these packets, you're no longer finding that chemical in those packets. And as with any controlled substance, you have two issues in proof, in prosecution. You've got proving at the time the officer seizes and or makes an arrest that whatever that person has is actually the controlled substance, generally done by field test, what we call a field test. And then you've got the lab results. So you've got sending that product off to the lab, sending whatever is seized off to the lab, and having a chemist who testifies, this is cocaine, this is methamphetamine, or in this case, this matches this synthetic chemical descriptor that you've written as being against the law. So what's happened all over the country, and the feds followed, so after the state of Alaska put in their Controlled Substances Act, the feds followed. Then we had a wave of a new designer drug on the street called bath salts. We added it to our code, state added it to their Controlled Substances Act, feds added it to their Controlled Substances Act. The federal statutes also have an act called the Federal Analog Act that is designed to address lookalikes. So it's designed to sort of codify and make illegal chemical substances that imitate and have the same effect on the body as the ones that we're attempting to outlaw, even though the chemical makeup is different. Most of the prosecutions that have been done nationwide successfully against people mainly selling the drug have been under the Federal Analog Act. Neither the city or the state has an analog act that's similar and broad like the Federal Analog Act. So I've been, over the last year and a half, talking to chemists. I went on a raid with the feds in Fairbanks on some head shops up there, did some work with them on what came back, what kind of chemicals came back in the drugs that were seized in those shops up there. We have a report from the feds where they had some Air Force investigators go look at some shops all over the state, and we've had an assessment by APD of the status. Of course, we have complaints from APD daily, weekly, and citizens of spice on the street being sold. They're being sold in Anchorage over the counter, and the continual claims from the people selling and distributing it that it's legal, that it doesn't violate any state or federal law, and actually putting that on the package. I brought some packaging here today because what we want to do is we want to take a two-pronged approach. So if I can back up for 1 second and let the assembly members and everyone present at the meeting know that I have been working for a year on a rewrite of the Anchorage Penal Code, addressing several problems and that have several purposes. And I know that I've talked with you, Mr. Chairman, privately about the update, bringing the Anchorage Penal Code in line with the misdemeanors that are illegal under state law, because our office was created to prosecute misdemeanors that the Anchorage Police Department investigates. And we were created for that reason, so that the state prosecutors could focus on felony crime in Anchorage. So we really want to get back to a place where Anchorage PD can bring the city prosecutor's offices all of their misdemeanors. And the code rewrite is designed to do that. We're hopefully going to have it ready for introduction at the January 14th meeting. But we've moved spice up because spice is such an immediate problem. And one prong of our approach to spice is to incorporate by reference all state and federal laws, including the Federal Analog Act, into city code, so that we have that available. And of course, many aspects of that law aren't misdemeanors, but the idea would be that if it's against the law under State Controlled Substances Act, Federal Controlled Substances Act, or the Federal Analog Act, it's also against the law in the city of Anchorage, and we have the power to use those laws to move forward against individuals violating them under city code. But the second prong has been more challenging, and I think we've cracked it. I'm very excited because I have finally been able to put together some language with the help of basically one other place in America that's tried this. But what we are going to attempt to do is to describe these products not by what's in them, but by what they are not. Okay? So because when we try to describe them by what's in them, they just change what's in them, right? And then our descriptions are out of date and they don't have any legal effect. But what they aren't is they aren't any legitimate product.
Correct.
Right? They aren't like anything else that anyone is selling to consumers. So here we have stores in Anchorage that are selling these products to consumers as if they're legal products, telling people they're legal products. And consumers are buying them assuming that they have all the protections that a consumer has when they buy a product, right? So what happens when you buy a product and it's in a package? It tells you where it was made, who it was made by, and what's in it, right? And so what I've done is I've written an ordinance that describes these products as basically misbranded illicit synthetic drugs, okay? So they're not branded or they're misbranded, and we're describing them as a product by their packaging and by what's not on it, and making it illegal to possess, sell, manufacture, advertise, distribute, market products that aren't products, right? That have nothing that the consumer could go back and say, what was in this? Because it really hurt someone that I loved. Or where was this made? Who made this? Who's responsible for this? So I brought some examples so that you can see. These are seizures that APD has had recently. There's a lot of this going around. The federal and state investigative reports revealed there's potentially 23 or more stores in Anchorage that are selling these over the counter. And everybody wash your hands after, but they're all empty packaging. And if I just pass some around, then what you can see is both what's on them and what's not on them. so, for example, this one that I'm holding here is a foil package. The name of the product is Bloody Eyes, okay? It says, this product contains only legal chemical. And on the back it says botanical sachet, Hebal, Hebal, incense, lab certified, keep out of reach of children, no banned chemicals, not for human consumption, and then in all caps, it's legal, okay? And a UPC barcode, right? This does not tell me what's in this packet. It does not tell me who made it. It does not tell me where it was manufactured or by whom it was manufactured. It does not tell me anything that a product that is regulated and sold to consumers tells you. And so this ordinance that I have written is an attempt to describe these products by what they are not, to ban them, to ban their possession, sale, use, distribution, advertising, marketing, and the penalty, creating a minor offense penalty for this.
So criminal or?
It's a minor offense. So you can't really say it's criminal and you
So it would
can't
be a
say it's
money
civil.
only, fine only.
It's a fine only, and there's some advantages to that. And the advantages are for the officers on the street, okay? So what this would do is and so the new minor offense code, which the court system passed in April of 2013, says if a municipality designates an offense as a minor offense and attaches a fine to it, no magistrate or judge can reduce the fine. It is a fine certain. And so the way I've written this ordinance, and I'm very, very close. I have asked Mr. Wheeler and the mayor whether we can get it onto the agenda for Tuesday. It's a possibility. If not, it will be on the next agenda after Tuesday. But the way that we've written it is $500 fine, which is the maximum fine under the minor offense code. So we say it costs $500 to have this. It costs $500 to sell each one of these. And the officers write their minor offense citations electronically now. They're electronically submitted. If someone comes in and pays them, fine. If not, they go to the court system for default. Because they're going under minor offense code, the default is a criminal judgment, not a civil judgment. So it's for collection purposes. People who wouldn't pay these fines would be collected against as if they hadn't paid a traffic ticket. A vehicular fine comes out of their PFD, right?
Quick question, under that code, will we be able to have the officers seize the
Yes.
product?
Specifically states seizure, and $500 per packet, per package, per vial, per tube, per piece of paper, so that if we go into a shop and someone has 30 of these sitting behind the counter, the officer could file electronically 30 $500 citations.
Against who? The sales clerk or the business owner?
Well, they could file it against the person who's there, marketing, displaying, advertising, selling. The ordinance contains these verbs: possessing, right? The person who's there possessing, yeah, they file it against the person who has it. And if the owner's there, then it's the owner. If it's the person who has it, the point is not to make it so legally complicated for ourselves to say these are products that aren't real products. And there's a lot of description in the ordinance about factors that can be considered in whether or not this is a legitimate consumer product or it's an illicit synthetic drug. So the title of the ordinance would be illicit synthetic drugs, and it would make it a crime, a minor offense, to possess, sell, display, advertise, market, use these illicit synthetic drugs, and then it would enable us to get it off the street. Now, I did have a question from an officer. He says, what happens when someone starts buying a packet, breaks it up, rolls it up into little cigarettes and sells it? You know, there is this question of driving it further underground, and that's true, but that's true with all drugs, right? What we need to address right now is the boldness in which these sellers are saying, waving these packets around at our kids and saying, this is legal, this is okay. Some of these things have names that are designed to appeal to children. Scooby snacks, you know, they have cartoon characters on them. They're brightly colored packaging. They're definitely marketed for a young adult and child market. And these are the exact same consumers who think that because they're buying it at a store and because someone is selling it to them legally, that it must be safe and it must be okay. So what we're addressing with this new approach is an idea of going after it as a product versus as a chemical combination, and staying away from having, I mean, one of the problems when you try to describe the chemical combination is you've got to send it off to the lab, and then you've got to wait. And if the lab has never seen this chemical combination, then they say, we don't know what it is. They don't know what it is. Nobody knows what it is.
So Ms. Gray Jackson has a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate your intensity a lot, and I mean that, okay? I'm just glad that things are moving right along, too, because this is really, really bad. My first question is, what are some of the places where this is sold? That's the first
The most of the places that have been identified have been what we term as smoker tobacco shops.
Okay,
You know,
right,
so
okay.
those are places that are selling, you know, regular tobacco, what we used to term drug paraphernalia. Drug paraphernalia is, our particular city ordinance has been held to be unconstitutional, and that we aren't the only ones. That is a trend,
Not to interrupt you, but I have two more questions.
Yes, I'm
and
sorry,
I
go
need to
ahead.
go to another meeting.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, and so, I'm assuming that you're gonna be working with the state during the next session so that they can change the statutes to match ours?
Well, they have asked us what we're gonna do.
Okay.
We have given them this approach. Nobody has seen this ordinance yet. Rolling it out to you guys today at this committee meeting is the first time I've been able to talk about it publicly. But we've got it, I think it's good. I think it's gonna be a good approach, and we are hoping they will copy us. Yes, so that they could have a similar approach. They
Right.
certainly have access, you know, to the minor offense table that the court system maintains. One of the greatest things about designating it as a minor offense, besides making it so easy and immediate for the police to seize and to have this immediate consequence to whoever, whatever context they find these packages, is that it used to be that when we enacted an ordinance, we had to build in an enactment period so that DPS could get it in the Uniform Offense Citation Table, the UOCT, so that the court system would then accept filings. But when the minor offense code was rewritten in April of this year, the court system started maintaining its own minor offense table. So the Uniform Minor Offense Table, UMOT, is the table that a code provision like this would go into, and we can make that happen the next day. So we can get this done. If we can get this and everyone looks at this ordinance and thinks this is a good ordinance, this is a decent approach, this is something we should try, and we can get it passed, we can get these officers writing these tickets, you know, as soon as we get it through the assembly process, and just start getting this stuff off the streets, off the shelves, and out of the hands. So there's one other jurisdiction that has done this. I'm sorry.
Hang on one second. Do you
Did
have
I
another
answer
question?
your questions?
Yeah, actually you did. I don't mean to be rude, but I
That's
gotta
okay.
go all the way to
She has-
Public Works.
She has a 1 o'clock
That's
meeting.
okay.
Yeah, and Dick does too. But anyway, no, I
I'm gonna
appreciate.
drop off in just a second.
Again, I
But let me
appreciate
talk to the officer for a second.
Thank
You said
you.
you think
I
you can
gotta
get it
go.
ready for the first Tuesday in January?
Well, we're gonna try to have it introduced next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. If you have any problems, give you a call or myself a call, and we can lay it on the table and introduce it.
Yeah,
I wanna get this thing set, so we can always work on it later, but let's at least get it into the system now. Because I know, Paul, you said you went to a smoke shop,
Yeah.
and you saw spice being sold, and they told you what? It's perfectly illegal?
Yep.
Well, they did, and then not only that, the clerk, when I asked them, they have a $30 package and a $40 package, and when I asked them, they have, and just to describe this, the length of this table, it was divided in the middle, and there were 2 of these chrome racks that you see at like Costco or Sam's that you get for your garages, and they were from ceiling to the floor, and literally boxes upon boxes upon boxes of those package level. I didn't see the vial tubes, but I've seen the packaging, and they're just all different brands, and that was in the back room. And in the front room, they had about 8 boxes of the same thing, packets, multiple packets. And so I asked the clerk, I said, so it was a theft suspect, and we were tracking down where they spent their money. And I said, what were they here for? Oh, they bought this package of this stuff. And I said, oh, you mean the spice? And they go, yeah, well, yeah. And I said, okay, so why would you sell this stuff to them, knowing what they're after, because they come in a couple times a day? And she says, well, you know, the boss puts it out here, we just sell it like we sell anything else in the store. And I said, well, would you use it? She says, of course not. That stuff, that's not good for you. And I said, but you have no compunction in selling it to a patron in the store. You know, that doesn't make sense.
That's the reason, Paul, I wanna make sure we get both the sales clerk and the business owner.
Yep, and that's the
Both are
thing.
gonna say it's not our fault, the other one's telling us to do it.
That's right. And so.
Well, I think if we charge the clerk, then the clerk's gonna say, hey, owner, I can't pay $500 per packet for, how many do you think you saw?
Oh,
You
my
know?
God.
100,
Yeah, you could make
200,
amends.
300?
No, let's talk about 1,000.
Right,
I'm not
right.
kidding you. It was at
Right.
least 1,000 or 2,000.
Right, the thing is right now they're making money doing it, we gotta stop them from making money doing it.
That's right.
And, this
It's
is,
profitable.
I think this is a good approach, and what I was gonna say is, I spoke with the solicitor in Bangor, Maine, which is, has passed a similar ordinance, the only other city in the country that's made an attempt to define this product in any way other than by its chemical makeup. And he said they passed it in May. He said they have no more spice or bath salts in Bangor, Maine.
Wow.
You know, and so, and it was, he did the same thing, $500 per packet. So I hope that when the assembly sees the language, you'll see we've made a very strong attempt not only to describe the reasons for describing a product like this, but a list of factors that someone could see. For example, if the product says it's potpourri, but the price is disproportionate, it's $40 for 0.5 grams of potpourri.
Exactly.
And I, as the prosecutor, can bring in a bag of potpourri that I got at Pier 1 for $12, that's 16 ounces, then this is proof, the way that the language of the ordinance is written, that it's mislabeled, it's misbranded, it's being mismarketed. That's not really what it is.
No.
And we don't know what it really is, because unlike
Yeah,
other.
we know it's not this
That's
stuff.
using it either.
Right,
Yeah.
right. We
That's
have
the
no
thing.
idea what it is, or who made it, or where it came from, or what it is.
A quick question.
Oh, I've gotta run to this meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank you, sir.
For the record, Mr. Train will be off. But Mr. Chief, can you briefly, medics, have they been seeing an increase in patient runs for people affected by what they think is spice?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I was curious, one thing I haven't asked my guys about is Zany. Have you guys seen any of that
Do you
yet?
think that's N-bomb? Do you think it's the same as Happy or Smiles or
This
N-bomb?
was,
It's like fake synthetic LSD?
no, this was, developed in Russia. It is,
Okay.
essentially a very slow onset, but very long-acting narcotic.
Hmm.
I'd not heard of it here, but I didn't know if you
I
guys
haven't heard
about
of it, but
first.
we did add language about,
And sold it as Zany as a quote, an air freshener.
I'll look that up, but I did look up and try to find out if there was anything out there about anything new, you know, because the minute you start talking about stuff that's been around a while, somebody comes up with something new. And from May to November, there have been some incidences of a use of basically a synthetic form of LSD called N-bomb or Happy or Smiles, and 5 deaths from that. And so I just went ahead and put it in. You know, I just added it to all the definitions, so it's there, with the idea that if anybody tries to think they can sell that stuff legally, you know. And again, the whole point of the ordinance is nobody is going to have to go in and look and say, this is what this actually chemically is. It's really more like, hey, you're packaging and selling this like it's something real, but what it really is it's an illicit synthetic drug.
It's crap.
That's designed to have an effect on the body, and we don't know what it is, we don't know what you're selling, and we don't know who made it, and therefore you can't sell it here.
For the safety of our
And you,
community.
and you can't buy it
I-
here,
I-
and you can't have it here.
And I'll be candid with you, when we knew we were passing the ordinance, we knew up front that we knew that as soon as we passed this ordinance, it would likely be obsolete, because all it would be is the sidestep. So
The
we have been
designer.
asking, as this public safety committee, have been in conversing with, not necessarily your office, I have mentioned Mr.
Right.
Wheeler a couple times, but I've mentioned it to the chief multiple times in committee meeting.
Right.
And side
And he
note,
comes to
because-
me. I mean,
Okay.
whenever you guys are asking about it, I mean, they come and they say, hey, lawyer,
And he
you
said,
know, how
and
do we
he's-
do this?
Well, and he said he would, and that's why I didn't
Right.
pressure your
Right.
office, because in the past, we put our own ordinance together, and quite frankly, we had I guess you'd say, like you, we had a assistant municipal attorney who was working with us to build the first
Right.
ordinance.
Well,
So-
and let me tell you, you know, my office in City Hall is on the corner that looks out on Town Square Park.
Yes.
You know, so I see this stuff in action every day. You know, I can just watch it. And I know it's a huge problem, and we've been working on this bigger picture, you know, for a long time. But what really the breakthrough was that I found this other city that had a different approach, and I looked to see if we could adapt that to us. And it is a completely different approach, you know, and it is a real challenge as a lawyer to try to define something not by what it is, but by what it isn't.
Yeah.
But I think it can be done. They're doing it successfully. I think, and it's a much smaller city, but I think that it's worth a shot. And I think that by doing it as a minor offense, we give ourselves the best legal chance of grabbing as many packets as we can. If we have a big challenge from a store owner, if we seize 1,000 packets and it's gonna cost them $500,000, you know, they're gonna hire a big lawyer and we'll fight about it in court. But my motto is fight it and write it. At the same time we're fighting it, we can be writing the tickets, we can be taking the packets, we can be getting the stuff off the streets, and, you know, ultimately, if someone says, I mean, this is pretty untested, you know, nobody's doing it anywhere, and if some judge says, well, I don't like it for this, that, or chicken fat reason, then we'll deal with that as it arises. But in the meantime, let's write the tickets, let's get the stuff
Seize the
off the
items.
street. Yeah.
I agree. Mr. Schmalzbach.
Quick question, does that barcode say anything on that package, do you know?
Now, I looked into barcodes because we thought about putting in UPC as one of the factors, right? But what I learned about barcodes is that you know, there's an official barcode site where a big store goes and gets a barcode, and the first digits of the barcode are related to the owner of the barcode, the store, Freddy's, whatever, right? And then there are sites on the internet where there are some larger organizations resell their barcodes to small businesses so that you don't have to go buy your own barcode. So I suspect what we would find if we were to trace the barcode is we would find some sort of big nameless, faceless organization that has sold its barcode coding to anybody that will pay $100 for it on the internet. And it's, you know, it's really just an inventory control device, right? And so what it should tell us, the ones that are barcoded are being made by somebody who's making so many that they have an electronic inventory control of what they're making. And they're making megabucks. So the most offensive piece of information that I got relating to Spice recently was a citizen letter through the citizens feedback website that was passed ultimately to me through APD and everybody else, where basically a citizen said that they were standing in a tobacco shop and the woman was bragging, it was near high school, and she was bragging that she was making $1 million off of selling this crap to kids. Excuse my language.
Candidly, I've got to tell you, my motivation in the last 6 months or so has been increasing, and I'm becoming agitated because of that very reason. If we couldn't come up with something through banning a substance by ingredient or whatever, I was very tempted because most of these things are being sold in a tobacco shop.
To tax it.
To tax the damn thing.
Right? To tax it.
$100
I mean,
a pack, $200 a pack.
Mr. Wheeler and I have been discussing that for months. I said, why can't we just tax potpourri? Because, I mean, are the potpourri ladies gonna march around City Hall, you know, are they gonna, but really, I think that this is a good interim solution, because what it does is, it attempts to identify the specific product.
Well, the second part of this is, and that's something that you might wanna be concerned with, is internet sales, which is not in it, and then secondly, we've never been able to get around the state's, if you will, possession by consumption. So we get an empty packet, somebody's high as a kite, what do you have?
Well, you have a violation of this ordinance, because it doesn't require that product be in the packet. It just requires that you have the package.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, so you pull a soldier over, you know, because soldiers are big purveyors of this product because it doesn't show up on their testing, right?
They're younger guys.
You pull a guy over for speeding, right? You see in his console a package like this, or a vial like this. You're an officer, you know what you're seeing, right? So you first make sure he's not impaired, he's not driving impaired. He's not driving impaired, he's fine. You write him a ticket for the speeding, you write him a $500 ticket for this. Now, instead of a $30 high, that was a $530 high for him. You know, you chip away at the market, and you just take it and write him the $500 ticket. And what's he gonna do? He gonna go tell his first sergeant that he's gonna go have a jury trial about whether or not this was or is he gonna pay the ticket, maybe, or maybe he'll default on it and we'll take it out of his military paycheck, you know? So however you go, you know,
They're gonna pay.
you've gotten that piece out, and you've got one person who it's no longer fun, because somebody is gonna take it and it's gonna be too expensive for them. So you can work under this ordinance both on the user end and on the seller end without disproportionately punishing one or the other. You're being punished exactly proportional to how many of these you have, right? So if you're the seller and you have 1,000, uh-oh. And if you're the guy on the street and you have one, well, that was an expensive lesson, right?
It's amazing. I know, health department, right? You come in the health department, or you just a citizen participant?
Oh, I'm a high school student.
Oh, good, glad you made it,
Good.
thank you,
Yes.
welcome.
Good.
This is the scheduled meeting for the Public Safety Committee, and hopefully you're getting a little education out of this.
Yes, no, this one's interesting.
Perfect, perfect. We did move into here because the conference, the chamber seemed a bit big.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. Is there anything, I guess, as we close, is there anything else from members of the committee or that we should know about? University area, anything? Mr. Sherwood?
Sure.
Franklin? Chief?
Nope.
Nope.
Do you have any concerns or anything in public safety that we should hear about?
No.
What are you seeing in the community, a concern? Have you seen or hearing about this stuff, spice, bath salts,
Yeah.
or?
I think we had someone at service, my freshman year, almost dying of that, from spice when it was first.
Do you know where they're getting that kind of stuff? Do you know? Is anybody saying anything?
I heard there's 2 gangs at South. High School.
Gangs?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been hearing that.
There was some intelligence about individuals selling, but right now, if you can buy it in a store, why buy it that way? You know?
Well, in some cases, tobacco shops, if they're being legitimate tobacco shops, they shouldn't have anybody under age 19.
Well, a
But
lot
they
of these.
also are selling items that are not
A
tobacco.
lot of these say, you know, not for under age 19 and that kind of thing too.
Sure.
And of course, I mean, you do have to keep in mind that as the municipal prosecutor, I can only prosecute people at 18 and older, and we can only write tickets at, you know, I mean, vehicular crimes, yeah, if you're under 18 and you're driving, you can get a vehicular ticket. But for the offenses that are not vehicular crimes, we don't have any jurisdiction over minors.
What about this particular ordinance
Yeah,
regarding to this? Will we still be able to get anybody under 18?
I need to look at that.
Yeah.
I'm glad that.
That's good, that's a good
I'm
point.
glad that you were here, or I might.
No, that's a good point, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point to think of that.
Because in the state.
Because as a minor offense, we should be able to do it.
Yeah.
And
It's-
then the
we
s-
shouldn't
if
have
not, the
to.
state should be able to do
Right,
something with the,
yeah.
with the juvenile.
Well, and hopefully, if this works out and we're able to get some of this stuff off the streets, then the state will follow. I mean, it's just a matter of, you know, it's just a matter at that point, if they like our code, of just copying our code.
Have you guys had any contact with people on Spice directly? I have.
Yes.
I have recently come into at least 3 or 4 people that have had this stuff,
Yep.
and it is absolutely, so far it's been pretty consistent for me. Their pupils are completely blown. They're dilated to the extent I've not seen before. They look like their entire cornea is a pupil. And then they stand around almost zombie-like. And in one case, the guy was slowly walking in circles. He was outside a women's locker room at the sports center, and he couldn't understand. You couldn't have a conversation with him. He was trying to ask a question, and you couldn't understand him.
You mentioned 5 deaths, was that here in the state?
Oh, no, that was nationwide, 5 deaths nationwide from this
N-bomb?
this
N-bomb, okay.
synthetic, and there's it's called N-bomb because it's called 251 NBOM little e is actually some kind of chemical formulation for it. But what I wanted to say and what the DEA lab people reported in the presentations that I've been to is that there's virtually no distinction between spice, bath salts, or any of these other synthetic chemicals anymore. If you watch the way they make it and the way they spray it, they don't even know what they're spraying on there.
Exactly.
So, you know, bath salts are cathinone, right? And spice is synthetic cannabinoid, but it was all a marketing ploy to make it seem like marijuana, so that young people and people buying it would think that they were just buying a legal form of marijuana. It was never like marijuana.
No.
None of it was ever like marijuana. It's all synthetic stuff that works on your neurological system. Like you say, you can become paralyzed. We had that rape in Town Square Park, somebody on spice, raping somebody on spice, or bath salts, and it just really virtually doesn't matter anymore which you refer to it as, because you have no idea when you open a packet like this what this is sprayed with, and chances are it's some kind of bizarre combination of both, or some chemical combination that some chemist has come up with that's neither, trying to get around, you know, all of the laws that set forth the chemical compounds that are banned. Sorry.
Is spice prevalent in the villages, do you know?
Very, and in fact, Alaska Dispatch ran an article about little diamide. So if you go look up in Alaska Dispatch that article about little diamide and about spice coming into little diamide, it reminded me, Mr. Honeman, of when you said you started getting mad, because that was about the time I was starting to get really mad. And when that reporter called me up, I kind of got a little feisty, and he quoted me in that article as basically saying, "We're coming for you."
Yeah, I swear.
Because I was so mad
So
that day about it.
This guy's girl,
Alex tomorrow.
Yeah.
this gal's girlfriend, you know, the guy's girlfriend, the one that was walking around, we trespassed him. You know, he wasn't other than he was not a student or anything, but his girlfriend was, and so I'd sent her some messages to do a follow up. She said, "Doing fine. Found out it was potpourri. You can buy it at smoke shops. Says legal in all 50 states. Says on the package not for human consumption."
Right.
So I basically give the explanation. It was not potpourri, it's spice. I go back through it, and then I even said they don't know what the stuff's in, what's in this stuff.
But it is for human consumption. It is. The clerk will tell you it is. Everything about it tells you it is. And everything about it tells you that it's not potpourri. Why would anyone buy potpourri called dead man?
Yeah.
Why would you want your house to smell like a dead man, right?
So here's what she said. The ingredients on the packages, I looked online and everything came up natural. How is that how it got past the FDA? So here's this mindset. She's thinking, hey, they package it. It all
Right.
looks like a natural
That's
stuff.
exactly the mindset. That's what I'm
Lead
talking
bullets
about.
are natural too,
Yeah.
but that
Yeah.
doesn't
Arsenic
mean
is
it's safe
natural
for
too.
human
Yeah.
consumption.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, we'll be ending this meeting. Time now is 1:02 p.m. and thank you for attending.